Well, welcome everybody to Views from the Bridge, your second favorite, or maybe you forgot about us, Philadelphia Union podcast. We are back. We have not been recording this season, and in a lot of ways, there hasn't been all that much to talk about, but we are going to start recording again. Hopefully with weekly episodes. We'll see how it goes for a couple weeks here, but we'll be back with weekly episodes over the summer and see what happens. And we have some renewed energy, I think, around podcasting. So hopefully that'll turn into more content for you guys. But we are back right now with a new episode of Views from the Bridge. My name's Justin, and I have Chuck Booth with me. Chuck, how are you?
Um, I am just working on staying above water right now, but no, it's all good. Just we're in a wonderful time in the soccer schedule of the season.
Between all the things that you write about, do you ever find yourself confused about what team or what game you're actually writing about?
Um, so the worst thing is been a nice recent struggle with Europa League versus MLS with the Atalanta versus Atlanta, and
Oh yeah, that's fun.
misspelling both cities because of it. But for the most part, it's more struggling to remember what day it actually is.
Oh yeah, that's good. That's always good. Well, hey, listen. So it's been a while since we recorded, so I don't necessarily feel like we got to recap all the games. And since the last game was a 0-0 draw, that there wasn't really that much to even talk about. Um, I guess we can start this way. And I feel like I'm pretty confident that our content tonight is probably going to trend negative in some way, shape, or form. So let me start out with this. Of all the I don't know, of all the negatives or all the things that we could complain about this team, what do you like about the Union this season? Or what's been the, I don't know, surprising thing? What's been the thing that you've, I don't know, enjoyed this season about the Union?
Um, wow, that's a little hard, but I mean, I would say there's two things because I'm happy that Leon Flock is now back playing soccer. Um, we've known that we've needed that in midfield for a very long time. I'm also happy when Quinn Sullivan actually gets to play in midfield. Um, I'm still not a fan of this secondary striker slash winger thing that he gets put into way too often. But when he has filled in the Ali Bedoya role as a right-sided shuttling midfielder, he's looked great.
Yeah, I think even more general than that, for me, Quinn Sullivan has, I think, just been one of the positives of the season. I think for last year, it felt like last season he didn't show up all that much, and maybe it was like we've talked about a lot of times on this podcast. Like we don't exactly know what position he plays or if he even plays a position that's on this team. But it seems like he came back this season with I don't know, a renewed focus on winning a spot on this team and like figuring out what position he actually plays or whatever.
Does
So
it does it help a little bit making sure that you're not completely shown up by your little brother?
yes, that also might help. That there's layers of this motivation thing that he's like dealing with right now or trying to figure out. So it is good, but I think I think he has been one of the positives for me. Um, and I would agree with you. I think Leon Flock being back has also been a net positive for this team.
I mean,
Um,
for the most part, the homegrowns have been positive. They just
yeah,
haven't had enough support from a lot of stalwart members of this team.
yeah. We'll figure that out, I guess. In in the yeah. I think McGlynn has been good and has been a solid, solid player on the team. Um, you know, Carranza's been in and out a little bit, but I guess he's still he's still scoring goals, so I can't complain too much about his play. Um, but the problem is none of the other forwards, attacking players, are scoring much at all. So that's been a challenge for this team to kind of overcome. And then we can talk about the defense, but
Do we need to?
that's not going to go positive at all.
Well, just the fact that Andre Blake now getting surgery to clean up his knee doesn't even really feel like news says more than enough about where this defense and where this season is.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting. Like the news around Blake has been fun, I guess, for the past. Like it's just been weird how, 1 week it's a new contract, a new multi-year contract, and then the next week it's he's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks still because he got surgery, and it's like, all right, cool. I don't know what to do with that information other than just store it away for 4 to 6 weeks from now, and hope that he comes back just way more healthy than he has been to this point in the season.
And Semmel's been great, so it's at least been like more okay than normal when Andre Blake doesn't play. And it's not like central defense is good even when he does play.
That's true. Talking about Samla, you do feel like, I feel like he's been good, but like, what do you like about him, or what has been the thing that has stood out to you about his play so far?
I mean, it's mostly just his shot stopping, because like he definitely has some issues when it comes to claiming crosses, but he makes the saves that you expect him to make, and then he makes some saves that you don't expect him to make. And for Union backup keepers over the years, and this literally includes every single Union backup keeper essentially that wasn't John McCarthy just recently, there's been major issues with their shot stopping or them just conceding absolutely ridiculous penalties because they decide to give bear hugs in the box looking at Matt Freeze.
Oh man. Yeah, I think I like Semmel's play. I feel like he is a quality keeper who has been generally solid. I mean, there are certainly issues, and I think some of those issues are things that get cleaned up the longer you play in MLS. And so I think I could give a little bit of grace for the first time he's played in MLS, and he, coming from USL to MLS is just a different level of play. So you've got to figure out the game. But I feel like for the most part, he has figured it out pretty well. He's on a 2-game shutout streak, and hopefully that will continue. But, I think he has been solid. And the unfortunate thing is, as solid as our center backs have been for the past, I don't know how long, it's tough to see because he's been put in some really bad positions. And when you get put in a bad position by your keeper, or by your defense, as a keeper, sometimes there's just nothing you can do in that situation. So you just have to, I don't know, some of the goals you just you got put in a real bad situation. And then there have been some crazy goals scored against us in the last month and a half. And just like, okay, like when is this kind of luck or this kind of thing going to stop happening to us when, guys are scoring from outside the box, all this kind of stuff. It's like, when can we get a break?
Well, it's also the funny thing that, so as per usual, the sky is falling and the Union are 6 points out of fourth place with the game in hand.
Yeah, I mean that's my thing that I've had this problem with the Union all season because I feel like the season has been terrible, and in some ways it definitely has. But then I look at the statistics, or I look at what's actually happening and kind of where they are on the table and all that kind of stuff. You're like, we're not actually that bad of a position. And if we can put a good run in the summer, who knows?
My problem is Pachuca, because we have a very different light on this season. If the record loss in Union history didn't happen in their most important game / competition, and granted, Pachuca's in the CONCACAF Champions Cup finals, But conceding 6 goals when you're the Union to anyone is just absolutely ridiculous. And it's just that it's not like much has happened since then to make you feel better about the season, as they're currently winless in 7 of their last 8 games, with the sole win being over the absolutely helpless New England Revolution.
Yeah, and it is just weird to kind of like and I guess you have to like put it back in context a little bit. Andre Blake's been out a bunch, blah blah blah. But even since Pachuca, you gave up 2 to Austin, you gave up 2 to Atlanta, you gave up 2 to RSL, you gave up 3 to Seattle, you gave up 2 to DC, you gave up 3 to Orlando, you gave up 2 to NYCFC. So like these are not, and not that some of those teams are not good teams, but you're right. Nothing has happened that has shown like, hey, we're trying to clean up the defensive issues and make sure that we're not giving up goals anymore. Now, you can put that back in context and say, okay, we did shut out New England. They're not good. We did shut out Charlotte. But when you're on a 4-game losing streak at home at the place that has been guaranteed wins for the most part, or guaranteed draws for the most part over the last couple seasons, and now we've lost 4 in a row there. I don't know what you do with that.
Well, you so there's another thing, unfortunately, in those games during this run too, because remember, the Union don't want the ball during a game, and they have held the majority of possession in every single one of those games during this winless streak, except 2, and that was against Charlotte and against Atlanta.
Yeah, and a lot has been said too about. The thing is, when you give up early goals, you are going to have to possess the ball. You can't, when you give up an early goal, or 2 early goals, or 3 early goals, you can't sit back and wait for a team to attack you, because they're not going to attack anymore. They're done. They got their 3 goals and they're done. And so you have to hold the ball. And so part of that Union strategy, part of the way this team has been built, part of the way they've operated for the past couple of years, is not giving up early goals, and then kind of either wearing a team down to where in the second half they just score goals, or you get to halftime 0-0, the other team starts attacking like crazy, and you just counter and score a couple goals, or you get an early goal and you just hold the ball, like you just soak up pressure for the rest of the game. And like that's the way the Union have operated. And so when you give up a goal in the 5th minute, 6th minute, 12th minute, whatever it's in, now you've got now you have to possess the ball. And again, that's not the way this team is built.
And that's where the concern for everyone comes in, because the key word that you put in there is the way that the Union have operated. And where it really does feel like we're reaching a crossroads of, can the Union continue to operate the way that they've operated and actually be near the top of the Eastern Conference, especially as it is now being run by a Barcelona Legends team.
Yeah, and you can't do that against that team. That team's not going to let you just sit back and absorb pressure all game long. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. There's part of me that felt like this season has just been weird. That, like, thinking back to a couple games ago against Orlando, you give up Muriel's first two goals in MLS play. One of them is a shot from outside the box on the volley that I don't know that any keeper in the world is getting there. And from then on in that game, you just find yourself behind the game and chasing the game. And so I just go, okay, that was like a weird goal that, like, I don't know. It doesn't go in every time, and it doesn't go in for most strikers in the world. So like, but then you still are having to dig your way out of it, and it doesn't help you when your strikers are not the most potent. or haven't been the most potent this season, when your number 10 is potentially coming back down to earth a little bit, and your defense is probably going to give up another goal or two the rest of the night. And so I don't know how you continue to climb back. So I think you got to figure out how to stop giving up early goals, one, and then you got to start figuring out how to score. But they're doing okay scoring. They're just always scoring from behind, which is not the way the Union want to be.
Yeah, and I think it's a bit of a two-part issue because, still, even worse comes to worse. This is a playoff team. I understand that just making the playoffs isn't really, enough anymore, but, still doing that and, advancing in the playoffs is something. There's still probably an upper tier team in the Eastern Conference when William Carranza is healthy. The problem is that we do not know how many more days of him being not only healthy, but on this team that we actually have in the future, since his contract is up in December, and there is now the potential that he could be replacing Santi Gimenez at Fenerbahce. I mean, not Fenerbahce, Feyenoord.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is the question that I've been asking myself, is how do you replace his goals when no one else seems to be able to score? And then we have a striker on our team who can't seem to get on the field, let alone in an 18. So
yeah, I mean, I just find it easier to pretend that he doesn't exist. And I'm hoping that they just figure out a way to buy out his contract this summer, because literally anything taking that roster spot is better than throwing money in a hole.
or you play the guy and see what he does. You know what I mean? I don't know.
But
It's
cool. I still like in those situations, I still prefer, especially since it's not like Jim Curtin's really shown us that he's not gonna play someone who should be playing. Generally, when we've had these issues of why is this guy not playing? Why is this guy not playing? Outside of them being potentially academy kids who just aren't ready and end up breaking out the season after, they've been pretty bad. Looking at Joaquin Torres in Chile right now, those are some bad numbers.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I guess I shouldn't doubt Curtin all that much. But yeah, it is hard. It is. This season has just been a hard one to figure out, and not that we can figure it out. We're not the coach, but it has been a hard one to kind of figure out what's gone wrong. When you think about, and we've talked about it a little bit, when you think about the center backs, what has gone wrong in your mind? Because up until Pachuca,
I think it's just minutes. They've played almost every minute that they've been available for the last 3+ seasons. And while you have had in the past kind of Damian Lowe to rotate in a little bit when he's not injured himself, they just don't get a rest. And especially with Glesnes in particular, it's not like he was ever the fastest and already had just a bunch of minutes under his belt. So it seems just kind of things are catching up to him a bit, and you can't have two not fast center backs who are extremely reliant on being in the position to anticipate what's happening before it happens. Otherwise, they can't really catch up to the play. Then playing behind a midfield that's not necessarily doing enough to cover them. Because while the homegrowns have been great, when you play Jack McGlynn and Quinn Sullivan in the same midfield, there's no defense.
Yeah. And to that end, Jose Martinez has not been the player that we know he is this season either. And so I do think that's what helps about having Flock back is like it does give us and then I go back to your comment of like players not being ready. I mean, Bueno obviously has been on this team for several years, and you feel like at some point Bueno's got to be ready.
Yeah, that one is a weird one because it seemed like he was breaking out, and then now everything's gone backwards.
But to the point I was making, I mean, I agree with you. But to the point I was making, I mean, I think like having Flock back gives you another defensive midfielder who will provide some cover, and is not a 60-minute Ale Bedoya type player either. So I do feel like that probably will help long term. I mean, it's been like 3 games that he's really been back and started a couple of those. But so it'll be nice to have that in addition to what we already have.
Yeah. I mean, especially when just the best defensive midfield that you can possibly have includes both Flock and Martinez, because they both know what each other wants to do. And the presence of Flock does sort of limit Martinez's just reckless cards, because someone else can make some of those tackles instead of him going too far out of his range.
Yes. I mean, I don't disagree with you on any of it. I don't disagree with you on any of this. It'll be, I mean, when you think about the next couple of games, you've got Toronto, and then Montreal, and then and then the big one against Miami. But you got a couple of games here.
To be completely honest, I don't care what happens in these next couple of games. I mean, obviously, I want the Union to win them, and everything's a lot better if they win them. I just care a lot more about what happens once the summer transfer window opens. Because with this new contract for Andre Blake, especially with the fact that there were reports everywhere, including his own words, basically saying that if he felt that the team wasn't matching his ambition, that he would leave. So I want to know, in those contract negotiations, was he promised an uptick in spending? Especially since the Union also did a thing, at least if not today, recently, and now they've dipped their toe into the multi-club ownership realm by buying a stake in Lyngby in Denmark. Mm-hmm. So there's money somewhere, because you would assume a 10% stake is probably enough money to buy at least 2 MLS players. So if there aren't actual additions to this roster during the summer, when it's clear that this current roster isn't good enough to win even Leagues Cup, let alone MLS Cup, that's when I really get concerned.
Yeah, I think I would agree with all of that. I think it is like, hey, how do we get who is coming in, and will there be additions made to this team? Because just even scrolling the schedule, I mean, there's already 8 games on the calendar in July, and our current roster can't play 8 games in a month. So,
well, specifically, a good bit of our current roster won't be here in July.
Yes.
Because, so, I mean, I havenent done the full count, but Daniel Gazdog's going to be at Euros. If Andre Blake is healthy enough to play for Jamaica, he's going to be gone. Damian Lowe will also be gone for Jamaica. Then you're going to have, at a minimum, McGlynn and Nathan Harriel gone for the Olympics. as well as potentially Quinn Sullivan also gone.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and
Mm-hmm.
Jose Martinez is also going to be at Copa America. So you need bodies in the door.
Yeah. You definitely do, because it's
Well, heck, even the striker who we want to pretend doesn't exist in Ty Maribo, he'll be at Euros,
yeah,
which
this
is
is
actually
ridiculous.
ridiculous to play basically 0 minutes for this club and still get a call to Euros.
Well, maybe he'll perform at Euros and then he'll come back ready to play for the Union or something. I don't think that's going to happen, but man, it feels a little like this season just feels a little on edge, right? It doesn't feel completely wasted, but it doesn't feel completely positive either. Like there's like, oh, here's all this hope for the next couple weeks or whatever. It's like, no, this feels pretty like on edge in some ways. But hopefully we'll get it figured out, I guess.
Yeah, I
While
mean,
we're
even just keeping a shutout against Toronto tomorrow would be a good start, considering the form that they've been in as of late.
yeah, for sure.
Which is also just weird that Toronto FC, disregarding their Canadian Championship game, has scored 8 goals in their last 2 games against Montreal and Cincinnati. And if you want to go back further, they've been really good.
Yeah, I mean, they have been good. So it would be nice to keep a shutout there. I don't want to go. We've gone negative. I don't want to go too negative. But who's been your biggest disappointment, I guess?
I mean, it's got to be Glasnost. Like, I just don't like when you have to go to the core of your defense. I mean, it's got to go to the person whose job, especially when Andre Blake isn't on the field and he takes the armband. It's got to go to Glasnost there.
Yeah, I'd probably agree. I don't know that there's most of the other things that I've seen I've kind of expected. That one has been a disappointment for sure. Yeah, I don't know how else to say that for sure. Anyway,
yeah, no, I mean,
anything else you want to talk about?
It's funny because like I feel like there was something. Well, well, I mean, at least we haven't officially talked about Colin Sullivan signing his deal and going to Manchester City eventually.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's at least cool, and it's good that he'll at least be around long enough to hopefully appear for the first team. I am actually, one thing I'm genuinely curious about, I know there's been very weird stuff that people are saying about the fact that Brenden Aaronson should come back this summer, which is absolutely stupid because he is obviously good enough to perform at a top 5 European league and also has been, and during the back half of the season, was actually really good for Union Berlin. It's just that the buy option was too expensive for a broke club that almost got relegated to trigger it. But there is another Aaronson that actually should potentially come back this summer, even if it's just on a short-term move, with everything that has happened to Paxton Aaronson over the last year.
Yeah, it is like all this stuff is real interesting. So I think one kind of talking about Kevon Sullivan, like I do think it is just again the reminder that like our academy is still good and has still been performing at a high level. And not to say that's all on the academy. I mean, I think some of it is just his talent as a soccer player and all of that. But I think like that is just a good reminder that to build a sustainable ecosystem or like a sustainable system, a sustainable club, a sustainable level of success in MLS, like you've got to have an academy, and you've got to have an academy that's performing at a high level, and you've got to have players who can come out of that academy, and whether they stay whether they stay and play for the first team for a while or they go somewhere else in the world, and then we have sell on clauses and all that kind of stuff. No matter what it is, I mean, I think you've got to have a sustainable academy of some sort to maintain the success that the union wants to maintain. So I think that is a good thing. I think the second thing, I would agree with you about both of the Aronson brother. I do think Brendan has proven that he can play in a top 5 level. Can he be the main number 10 attacking midfielder or whatever at a top, at a top club? Maybe not, but he can play, in a top 5 league and play competitively at that level. Paxton is kind of, yeah, it's hard to break in, and if you're just going to keep getting sent on loans and end up kind of whatever, like, why don't you come on loan with a club who actually like loves you and will play you and has a spot for you?
There's going to be an opening at the 10 during the summer.
Yeah, and so that would be a good. It seems like there's a logical fit there that would make sense. Now, on the other hand, with Brendan, I think that there is, because the U.S. men decided to keep Berhalter around, there is not as much of the anti-MLS bias that used to exist. And so I don't know that it would be terrible for his career if he came back. Like, it wouldn't set him back as far as U.S. men if he continues to perform at a high level in MLS. But I would rather see him playing in and out in Germany or England.
My thing there is for like a player like Brendan coming back to MLS kind of feels like a failure, and you're looking to get your career back on track. And like, while there have been weird circumstances in his career so far, I certainly wouldn't chalk it up as anything close to a failure since his moves to Europe. Just like, I also wouldn't chalk Paxton's up as that either. It's just, it seems like Paxton left too soon, which was the concern that we all kind of had when he made the move. And just kind of needs a stabilizing move where he knows what he's doing from week in to week out, and then can bounce back and be better from it.
Yeah, for sure. I think, I'd agree with both of those thoughts there. But either way, I mean, the union needs something, and they need players in the door.
They need something, and they need it now.
They need a number 10 for the summer because Gazdag will not be there, and you need some help. Is that I was thinking about a player. I was thinking about a specific player that has now been on loan 2 seasons in a row in the center back position that seems to have kind of been forgotten in some ways. But it seems like you're talking about, it is weird with the number of minutes that our center backs have played that we let a homegrown center back go play alone again.
You mean a homegrown fourth center back who's good on the ball, can take free kicks, and seemingly, for the way that we want center backs to play, just I don't know why Brandon Craig's not here.
There's part of me that gets the inclination, right? That like, okay, if you loan him to the right team and he performs at that team, he's gonna get more starts than what he will for the union. But it seems like you can cover some of that. Was like, well, if he doesn't play on Saturday, then he can go play on Sunday for the 2 team. Like, it seems weird that we're holding, like, that he's not in the building. Like, it just seems like it'd be better for his career if he was in the building. You know what I mean? And I don't know.
Yeah, and especially
I'm not understanding.
It's especially weird, and I don't know the full context behind this because I can't claim to have kept up with El Paso's season. But even he's only started 5 games in the league this year for them. granted, he has started in 3 straight, and they've only conceded 2 goals in those 3 games that he started. But like, I yeah, I just don't get what's going on with him, especially, and it's especially just bad after the Austin loan, where he was loaned to one of the worst defenses in MLS and still didn't get minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a weird. Now, granted, I don't know where he is in the U.S. men's pool, but he may not be around. So, who knows? Anything else you want to address in this one? I mean, we're going to try to record on a weekly basis. There was a lot to cover.
No, I mean, just hopefully something happens soon to make us less sad. That's really all I've got here. Like, vibes are low in Unionville, and we need something good to happen.
It's a true statement. True statement for sure. All right, cool, man. Well, it's good chatting with you tonight. We'll be around. You can find us at VFTB Pod wherever you find things on the internet, whichever social media platform you use at this point. But keep an eye on our podcast feed. We'll have more episodes coming over the next couple of weeks, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.
And pretty
Stop.
brief